The NXL three-man World Championship is a go. And on this week, we are going to talk about the rundown of how it's kind of set up. Hello, everyone. I'm Craig, and this is Old Guy Paintball, and thank you for tuning in. As I said, this week, the three-man World Championship has officially been announced by the NXL and Major League Paintball, and it is going to be held on August 1st, which is a Friday at 10 a.m., and it will be a live event. Yes, a live event. This is an interesting concept. This is an extension of the 3 versus 3 that was held a few weeks ago at the Midwest Open. And I have some information here today, and I'm going to break down what I have learned about it. When I had first heard about this a few weeks ago, I could not find anything about it. And I was kind of, well, maybe it's really not a true event that's going to happen. But apparently, under the contract that they had, they could not really announce until this, what is now basically a few weeks before the event. I'm not sure why, but that's just how things work in professional sports. But first of all, we're going to go over that. Again, this is going to be held on a Friday morning at 10 a.m. And it is going to be held at the Disney Wide World of Sports, and it's going to be held in conjunction with ESPN2, and that'll be the channel to be on, ESPN2, and Disney are co-producing it with the NXL and Major League Paintball. At this point, they've not really officially announced too many announcers other than Matty Marshall will be doing probably the main portion of it, and there's still some details to work out with things like that are coming out, but this is what we know so far. This will be, 4 teams will be in it. It'll be Paintball Fit versus Edmonton Impact, San Diego Dynasty versus Red Legion. And the winner of those 2 matches will play for a final, which will determine the 3 versus 3 world champion, I guess, or U.S. champion, whatever they're going to eventually officially call this. This is going to be an interesting thing. One, it's on very short notice, so other than the teams that are involved, I'm not even sure they don't even know what the roster size is going to be, if they're going to limit the rosters or not. But I'm guessing that this is kind of an unusual format, and we'll go back to this here in a second. First of all, this is going to be played on a baseball stadium infield at the Disney Wild World of Sports complex. It's going to be very unique, that it's going to have a lot of seating, and the seating is supposedly going to be free to spectators, but you do have to go to their site and do some sign up for it. I guess they talk about wanting to give t-shirts out to people who are going to be an event there to kind of show their support for the this paintball event. Also, it'll be on the infield portion, and it'll be a smaller field than normal. Now, they haven't quite made an official announcement what the dimensions are going to be, but it sounds like it's going to be something in the middle, and it may not be as large, which actually isn't a bad thing for 3-man. Currently, an NXL regular size field is 150 feet by 120 feet, so something in the neighborhood of 90 by 120 or a 2/3-ish size field isn't going to be the worst thing for paintball. It would allow a lot of movement, and it'll be a lot easier for camera angles, which is, I think, part of the reason is the constraints of the field and for television purposes. Also, the rules are going to be very interesting. There'll be a 10-minute running clock, which means the clock will not stop for the 10 minutes. That's to kind of get all 3 matches within this 1-hour time frame. There'll be no timeouts. And at the end of a point, teams will have 30 seconds to reset for the next point. So that goes back to the rosters. I'm figuring at least most teams will probably have at least 6 guys, because trying to run off the field, get paint and air, and get back on in 30 seconds is going to be extremely difficult. So I'm figuring most teams will have at least 6 people and probably run 2 lines. They may even come up with a full roster and run 3, and and I'm not exactly sure how much help they're going to have in the pits, but that's also, like I said, the rosters are going to determine a lot of things on this. There'll be no mercy rule. It's all the points you can score in 10 minutes. I mean, that's going to be an interesting concept. So, but I think they figure with these better teams, 4 better teams in there, the points are going to be, you're not going to see a massive blowout on one side or the other. Also, there will be a 2-pod limit plus your hopper per point. That's going to add a new dimension to it. That means there's not going to be a lot of just dumping paint for no reason. And also I think it's going to help in a cleanup afterwards, because you see how these events, the paint is all piled up at the end. But that's an interesting concept of 2 pods per point plus your hopper. And it'll be a blind field release. The teams will not have much information other than maybe a day or two beforehand to see the field. So it's going to be pretty much a blind release field, which is going to add a very interesting, strategy of how quickly can teams break down the field and their opponents and make points. So I kind of like these concepts. This is going to be interesting. I'm not going to cover it in this episode, and then there'll be a future episode. Will 3 versus 3 or the 3-man tournament become the wave of the future? That'll be a separate subject. We'll be coming here at a later date. So again, if you do like all this content, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on these future episodes that I'll be doing. And also, please hit that like button and show some support for the channel. Another thing that's interesting, there's some interesting things that have happened with this. Is one, it was a very behind the scenes and last minute kind of drop. So it's a good and bad thing. The rumor mill was running about this for a while and nobody knew if it was really true. So it's good that it's finally out. The bad news is it doesn't allow a lot of travel time for people to go to this. So, it's going to be pretty much locals or someone who's really relatively close that wants to drive down to CSP. I don't think people are going to be, making a big deal to travel for this. The other thing that was unique is the players cannot bring their gear in to the stadium. Disney has a lot of policies with their about firearms on the premises, so the gear will be in a separate area and it'll be brought to the players for the tournament, and then at the end they'll turn their gear back over and it'll be taken back to this dispersal area or holding area and given back to them at the end of the tournament. So that's kind of a weird thing, but I see their point. They don't want players just bringing stuff in and out. Also, this is going to be one of those things where players are going to basically can fly in on Thursday night, play their tournament, and leave Friday afternoon. So it's a quick turnaround. This is a good and bad thing for paintball. The good thing and the plus side is we're going to get a live event on ESPN2, and we're going to get some pretty good national coverage with it. That's a plus for paintball. The flip side and the downside is the 10 a.m. time slot is not great. It's much better than the original one when they had last year for the Mid-Atlantic Open, and it was like at 1 o'clock in the morning or midnight or something like that. And they did do a lot of other playbacks on it that got viewership. But 10 a.m. is going to be difficult for a lot of people to watch because unlike, the rest of the world, it seems, they don't realize we all have real jobs. And trying to watch this is going to be difficult. Hopefully there'll be additional streaming time so we can see this event. And it's going to be a challenge being a live event. They've never done this in paintball. It's a first. So this is the baby steps of maybe a new way of doing things. So there's some challenges with that. But in the end, everybody who watches this must support ESPN for this endeavor. I encourage everybody on Friday after the event, which would be about 11 o'clock or later, to go on all their social media sites and thank them for putting paintball live on TV. Tell them that you're a supporter of paintball and you like to see more of it, and even in better time slots. I will probably drop on a short video to remind everybody, again, we have to show support for our sport. That's the only way to get better time slots and to continue to get these coverages that will help the sport grow again. It is a challenge, and we have to rise up and show that the paintball has a viable community and will support the sport. So I look forward to this event in 2 weeks. If there's any other information, I will drop it, but it is a limited amount coming out right now. So there's still some things in the works that have to be changed or figured out, and whatever happens, happens. But I hope you all get the chance to see it, and thank you for all your support. And I look forward to seeing all of you on the paintball field soon.